July 19, 1987. The Persian Gulf waters shimmer under a merciless sun as the USS Bridgeton, a Kuwaiti oil tanker flying the American flag, cuts through the strait. Without warning, a massive explosion tears through the water. The ship shudders violently. Sailors brace for impact. The tanker has struck an Iranian mine. But here's what most Americans never knew. This wasn't just one incident. This was the opening salvo of the largest naval convoy operation since World War II. A campaign so significant, yet so forgotten, that it reshaped how the United States Navy fights wars today. Welcome to the story of Operation Earnest Will, America's shadow war in the Persian Gulf, where every voyage could be your last, and where the lessons learned would echo through Desert Storm, Iraqi freedom, and every naval operation that followed. The year is 1980. The world watches as Iranian revolutionaries storm the American embassy in Tehran, taking 52 Americans hostage. But while the hostage crisis dominates headlines, something else is brewing in the Middle East, something that would drag the United States into one of the longest and most dangerous naval operations in its history. Iran and Iraq go to war. What starts as a border dispute quickly escalates into a brutal 8-year conflict that would claim over 1 million lives. But this isn't just a land war. Both nations realize that the real power lies in controlling the Persian Gulf, the narrow waterway through which 40% of the world's oil passes every single day. Saddam Hussein's Iraq, desperate to cripple Iran's economy, begins attacking Iranian oil tankers. Iran retaliates, but not against Iraq alone. The Iranian leadership makes a calculated decision. If we cannot export our oil safely, neither will the Arab states supporting Iraq. Iranian forces begin targeting Kuwaiti tankers, Saudi tankers, any vessel they suspect of supporting the Iraqi war effort. The attacks escalate throughout the early 1980s. Iranian gunboats swarm merchant vessels. Revolutionary Guard speedboats launch rocket-propelled grenades at defenseless tankers. Iranian warplanes drop bombs on ships in international waters. The world's oil supply is under siege. Kuwait, a tiny nation caught between two warring giants, faces economic starvation. Their tankers are being destroyed faster than they can replace them. Kuwaiti officials approach the Soviet Union first, asking for protection. The Soviets agree to reflag 3 Kuwaiti tankers, allowing them to sail under Soviet protection. When Washington learns that Soviet warships might establish a permanent presence in the Persian Gulf, alarm bells ring throughout the Pentagon and the White House. The Cold War is still raging, and the last thing America needs is Soviet naval power projecting into the world's most critical oil region. President Ronald Reagan faces a complex decision. America is still wounded from Vietnam, still recovering from the humiliation of the Iranian hostage crisis, still cautious about Middle Eastern entanglements. But the strategic implications are clear. If the Soviets dominate the Gulf, American influence in the region crumbles. In March 1987, the Reagan administration makes its choice. The United States will reflag 11 Kuwaiti tankers, allowing them to sail under the American flag with full United States Navy protection. The operation receives its name, Earnest Will. Nobody realizes it will become the largest naval convoy operation since the Second World War. The naval planners face unprecedented challenges. The Persian Gulf is not the open ocean where American carrier battle groups dominate. It's a confined, shallow waterway, barely 120 miles wide at its broadest point, studded with islands, oil platforms, and narrow choke points. The Strait of Hormuz, the only entrance and exit, is just 21 miles wide. In these confined waters, American technological superiority means less. A $20 million guided missile frigate can be crippled by a $500 mine. A Aegis cruiser can be attacked by a speedboat packed with explosives. The Navy must rethink everything it knows about modern warfare. Admiral Frank Kelso, who would later become Chief of Naval Operations, helps devise the strategy. American warships will escort the reflagged tankers through the most dangerous stretches of the Gulf. Minesweepers will clear the shipping lanes. Helicopters will patrol overhead, watching for Iranian speedboats. It sounds simple on paper. In reality, it's a logistical nightmare requiring dozens of ships, thousands of sailors, and constant vigilance in 120-degree heat where a single mistake could trigger a full-scale war with Iran. July 21, 1987. The operation begins. The USS Bridgeton, now flying American colors, departs Kuwait with the USS Kidd and USS Fox as escorts. The convoy moves slowly through waters everyone knows are mined. The American public watches nervously. If American sailors die protecting Kuwaiti oil, will the public support this mission? The answer comes within hours. The Bridgeton strikes a mine. The explosion tears a hole in the hull, flooding several compartments. But the tanker is massive, designed to survive damage. The crew conducts emergency repairs while the Navy escorts scramble to assess the threat. Miraculously, no Americans are killed, but the message is clear. Iran has mined the shipping lanes, and the United States Navy just sailed into a trap. The mine strike exposes a critical weakness. The Navy doesn't have enough minesweepers in the region. The few available minesweepers are old, slow, and inadequate for the task. In a moment of improvisation that would become legendary in naval circles, the Navy decides the safest way to proceed is to let the massive, heavily built tankers lead the convoys with the smaller warships following behind. The optics are embarrassing. American warships hiding behind civilian tankers. But it works. The tankers can survive mine strikes that would sink a frigate. Back in Washington, the Pentagon rushes minesweepers to the Gulf. They send the USS Guadalcanal, an amphibious ship carrying minesweeping helicopters. They lease minesweeping equipment from European allies. They train crews around the clock. The Navy learns a painful lesson. In modern naval warfare, unglamorous capabilities like minesweeping can be just as critical as carrier strike groups and guided missile destroyers.
Meanwhile, Iranian forces adopt new tactics. If mines alone won't drive out the Americans, they'll use swarming attacks. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Navy, separate from the regular Iranian Navy and answering directly to the radical clerics in Tehran, deploys dozens of small, fast attack boats called boghammers. These Swedish-built speedboats, mounted with machine guns and rocket-propelled grenades, can race at 50 knots, far faster than American warships can track and engage. The Revolutionary Guard develops swarm tactics, dozens of boats attacking from multiple directions simultaneously, overwhelming American defenses through sheer numbers. The American sailors face a psychological challenge as difficult as the physical one. In a conventional war, the enemy is clear. In the tanker war, the rules of engagement are murky. When does an approaching speedboat become a threat? When it's 5 miles away? 2 miles? 500 yards? Fire too early, and you risk killing innocent fishermen, triggering an international incident. Fire too late, and American sailors die. The stress is crushing. Every radar contact could be hostile. Every small boat could be carrying explosives. The sailors stand watch in body armor under the scorching sun, fingers on triggers, knowing that a split-second decision could start World War III. September 21st, 1987. An American helicopter spots the Iranian ship Iran-Ijar laying mines in international waters. Here is irrefutable proof of Iranian aggression, captured on video. The American commander makes the call. Stop the mining operation. Navy SEALs and special boat units move in. A brief firefight erupts. The Americans capture the Iran-Ijar and its crew, along with dozens of mines and mining equipment. The evidence is undeniable. Iran is not just defending its waters, it's conducting offensive mining operations against international shipping. The Iran-Ijar incident changes the political calculus. President Reagan authorizes more aggressive rules of engagement. American forces can now take preemptive action against Iranian platforms and vessels conducting hostile operations. The Navy identifies the Rostam oil platform as a Revolutionary Guard command and control center, a base for speedboat attacks. On October 19, 1987, American warships surround the platform. They issue a warning: evacuate. 90 minutes later, 4 American destroyers open fire. Shells slam into the platform, tearing it apart. Within hours, the structure is a burning wreck. The message to Iran is unmistakable. American patience has limits. But Iran refuses to back down. Just days later, an Iranian Silkworm missile, a Chinese-made anti-ship weapon, slams into the reflagged tanker Sea Isle City while it's anchored in Kuwaiti waters. The missile strikes the bridge, injuring the American captain and 17 crew members. It's the first time Americans have been wounded in the operation. The attack violates every norm of international law. The tanker is anchored, not underway, clearly not a military target. Reagan orders retaliation. On October 23rd, American forces attack the reshaped oil platform complex, another Revolutionary Guard base. Navy SEALs board the platforms, gather intelligence, plant explosives, and withdraw. The platforms disappear in massive explosions. The operation is flawlessly executed, but it marks a dangerous escalation. The United States and Iran are now engaged in direct military confrontation, even if neither side calls it a war. In Washington, debate rages. Some officials worry about mission creep. Others argue that only strength will deter Iranian aggression. The Navy continues the convoys, but tensions are at a breaking point. April 14, 1988. The USS Samuel B. Roberts, a guided missile frigate, is conducting routine patrol when it strikes a mine. The explosion is devastating. The blast tears a 15-foot hole in the hull, lifts the ship partially out of the water, breaks the keel, and nearly splits the ship in two. Fires rage below decks. The engine room floods instantly. 10 sailors are seriously wounded. The crew fights desperately to save their ship, implementing damage control procedures drilled 1,000 times. Pumps struggle against flooding. Welders shore up bulkheads. For hours, the outcome hangs in balance. Finally, through extraordinary seamanship and courage, the crew stabilizes the ship. The Samuel B. Roberts survives, but just barely. The attack on the Samuel B. Roberts is the final straw. Reagan authorizes Operation Praying Mantis, the largest American naval battle since World War II. The plan is ambitious: destroy Iranian naval capabilities in the Gulf in a single day. April 18, 1988. Before dawn, American forces move into position. The targets are carefully selected. The Sasan and Siri oil platforms, both used as Revolutionary Guard bases, plus any Iranian naval vessels that interfere. At 8 a.m., the ultimatum is delivered. Evacuate the platforms. The Iranians refuse. American warships open fire. Shells and missiles hammer the platforms. Iranian forces fight back, but they're hopelessly outgunned. The frigate USS Simpson destroys the Joshin, an Iranian fast attack craft that had the audacity to launch a missile at American ships. The Iranian missile misses. The American response does not. Harpoon missiles and 5-inch guns reduce the Joshin to burning wreckage in minutes. Throughout the day, the battle spreads across the Gulf. American aircraft sink the Iranian frigate Sahand after it attempts to attack American forces. Iranian F-4 fighters scramble, but are quickly driven off. Another Iranian frigate, the Sabalan, is badly damaged and left dead in the water. By nightfall, Iran has lost 2 frigates, a corvette, and 2 oil platforms. Iranian naval power in the Gulf is crippled. American casualties. 1 Marine helicopter crew killed in a tragic accident. No combat deaths. Operation Praying Mantis demonstrates American precision and power, but it also reveals something troubling. The fog of war in modern combat is thick and deadly. That same day, the USS Vincennes, an Aegis cruiser equipped with the most advanced radar and combat systems in the world, is engaged in surface combat with Iranian speedboats. The situation is chaotic. Multiple contacts on radar, radio chatter, combat alerts. In the midst of this, the Vincennes detects an aircraft taking off from nearby Bandar Abbas Airport, climbing and heading toward the battle group. The Vincennes issues warnings on both military and civilian frequencies. The aircraft doesn't respond or alter course. The crew believes they're tracking an Iranian F-14 fighter preparing to attack. The captain faces an impossible decision: shoot down what he believes is an attacking fighter, or wait and risk the deaths of 300 American sailors if it's really an attack. He orders missiles launched. 2 standard missiles streak into the sky. They strike their target. The aircraft disintegrates. 290 civilians are dead. The target wasn't a fighter. It was Iran Air Flight 655, an Airbus A300 civilian airliner on a routine scheduled flight.
The tragedy of Iran Air 655 haunts everyone involved. Investigations reveal a cascade of errors: misidentified radar contacts, assumption bias, communication failures, the stress of combat. The Vincennes crew genuinely believed they were under attack, but 290 innocent people died because of those beliefs. The incident becomes a lasting stain on Operation Earnest Will, a reminder that even the most advanced technology cannot eliminate human error in the chaos of combat. It also provides Iran with a propaganda victory, proof to the world of American aggression. Yet Operation Praying Mantis achieves its objective. Iranian attacks on shipping drop dramatically after April 1988. The Revolutionary Guard Navy, battered and demoralized, retreats. The regular Iranian Navy, never enthusiastic about confronting American forces, becomes even more cautious. The convoys continue with fewer incidents. July 18, 1988. Iran and Iraq agree to a ceasefire, ending 8 years of devastating war. With the Iran-Iraq war over, the rationale for attacking Gulf shipping disappears. The tanker war winds down. Operation Earnest Will officially continues until September 1988, but the worst is over. In total, American forces escort 259 convoys through the Persian Gulf. Thousands of sailors serve in the operation. 244 American service members receive combat action ribbons. 39 Americans are wounded. 3 are killed in action. The Navy loses 1 helicopter in combat. 1 frigate is nearly sunk by a mine, but survives. It seems like a modest price. But the impact on American naval doctrine is revolutionary.
The lessons of Operation Earnest will reshape the Navy's future. First, mines. Before Earnest Will, the Navy treats minesweeping as an afterthought, a capability maintained but not prioritized. The tanker war proves that in confined waters, mines are as deadly as cruise missiles. The Navy invests heavily in new minesweeping technology. Remote-operated vehicles, sonar systems, mine-hunting helicopters, specially trained explosive ordnance disposal teams. When Operation Desert Storm begins in 1991, American minesweeping capabilities are vastly improved, clearing Iraqi mines from the northern Gulf and enabling amphibious operations. Second, small boat threats. The Iranian speedboat swarm tactics expose vulnerabilities in American warships. Ships designed to fight Soviet cruisers and submarines struggle against 20-foot speedboats darting between oil platforms. The Navy develops new weapons and tactics: small-caliber rapid-fire guns, improved night vision capabilities, better coordination between ships and helicopters, new training focused on asymmetric threats. These improvements prove critical in later Gulf operations when Iraqi forces attempt similar tactics. Third, rules of engagement in ambiguous conflicts. The tanker war is not a declared war. There's no clear front line, no obvious distinction between military and civilian vessels in crowded shipping lanes. The Navy develops more sophisticated rules of engagement that balance force protection with restraint, aggressive defense with political sensitivity. These lessons inform every naval operation since, from the Balkans to anti-piracy operations off Somalia. Fourth, joint operations and interagency coordination. Operation Earnest will require seamless coordination between Navy ships, Marine helicopters, Air Force tankers, Army Special Forces, Coast Guard boats, and civilian agencies. Communication systems are incompatible. Doctrine varies between services. Cultural differences create friction. The operation forces the services to work together, identifying gaps and building relationships. These joint operations lessons become foundational for the Goldwater-Nichols reforms that transform American military effectiveness. Fifth, the importance of presence. Operation Earnest will demonstrate that sometimes the mission isn't to destroy the enemy, but to be there, showing the flag, demonstrating resolve, protecting allies, even when it's dangerous and unglamorous. This presence mission becomes central to American naval strategy in the post-Cold War era, from the Straits of Taiwan to the South China Sea. The technology lessons are equally important. The Aegis combat system, tested in the crucible of the tanker war, proves both its capabilities and its limitations. The system can track hundreds of contacts simultaneously, but it depends on human interpretation. The Iran air tragedy leads to improved identification systems, better training, clearer protocols. These improvements save lives in future conflicts. The Navy also learns about operating in extreme heat, maintaining complex systems in harsh environments, sustaining operations far from home bases for extended periods. Perhaps the most important lesson is cultural. Operation Earnest Will occurs during a period of doubt in the American military. The Vietnam War's shadow still lingers. The Iranian hostage crisis humiliation is recent. The Beirut barracks bombing killed 241 Marines just 4 years earlier. There's a real question whether the American military can operate effectively in the Middle East without suffering another quagmire or disaster. Operation Earnest Will, despite its challenges and tragedies, provides an answer. Yes, the Navy can conduct complex operations in hostile environments with discipline, professionalism, and success. This restored confidence is psychological preparation for Desert Storm just 2 years later. When Operation Desert Storm begins in January 1991, the Navy applies every lesson from Operation Earnest Will. Minesweepers clear Iraqi mines. Ships trained in the Gulf's confined waters operate with confidence. Rules of engagement are clear and effective. Joint operations are smooth. The precision and overwhelming success of Desert Storm owe a direct debt to the hard lessons learned in the tanker war. The admirals commanding Desert Storm naval operations are the same officers who served in Earnest Will. The doctrine they employ was written based on Gulf experience. The confidence they project comes from having done this before. The pattern continues through subsequent conflicts. Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003 sees Navy ships operating in the same waters, using the same tactics refined during Earnest Will. Anti-piracy operations off Somalia employ the lessons about small boat threats and rules of engagement. Freedom of navigation operations in the South China Sea apply the presence doctrine tested in the Gulf. Every Navy officer studies Operation Earnest Will at the Naval War College, learning from both its successes and its failures. Yet for all its importance, Operation Earnest Will remains largely forgotten by the American public. There are no blockbuster movies about the tanker war, no best-selling books,
No national memorials. Most Americans couldn't tell you it happened. Why? Perhaps because it doesn't fit neat narratives. It's not a clear victory like World War II or a clear tragedy like Vietnam. It's complex, ambiguous, a limited operation with limited objectives that mostly succeeded, but not perfectly. The Iran Air tragedy complicates the story, making it difficult to celebrate. The lack of large-scale battles or dramatic moments makes it hard to dramatize. But for the sailors who served, for the Navy as an institution, Operation Earnest Will is unforgettable. It's the operation that proved the Navy could adapt, could fight a new kind of war in a new kind of environment. It's where a generation of naval officers learned their trade, where doctrine was tested and refined, where the modern Navy was forged. The reflagged tankers that sailed under American protection delivered their oil, keeping the world economy stable during a critical period. The deterrence worked. Iranian aggression was checked. Soviet influence was blocked. The mission succeeded. Today, as tensions with Iran flare periodically, as American warships continue patrolling the Persian Gulf, as drones and missiles create new threats in old waters, the legacy of Operation Earnest Will remains relevant. The fundamental challenges haven't changed. Confined waters, asymmetric threats, the need to protect commerce while avoiding escalation, operating in a region where American presence is both essential and contested. The current generation of sailors faces the same heat, the same stress, the same split-second decisions as their predecessors in 1987.
The lessons endure. Mines remain deadly. Small boats remain dangerous. Technology provides advantages, but not certainty. Human judgment matters. Training matters. Experience matters. The Navy that learned these lessons in the tanker war passes them to each new generation, ensuring that the blood and treasure spent during Operation Earnest Will weren't wasted, but transformed into institutional knowledge that saves lives and protects American interests. Operation Earnest Will deserves to be remembered not because it was perfect, but because it was pivotal. It represents a turning point in naval warfare, the bridge between the Cold War Navy designed to fight Soviets in open oceans and the modern Navy that operates in littoral waters against asymmetric threats. It's where theory met reality, where assumptions were tested, where courage under fire proved that American sailors could handle anything thrown at them. From the mine strike on the Bridgeton to the tragedy of Iran Air 655, from the capture of the Iran-Ajwir to the triumph of Operation Praying Mantis, every moment of the tanker war taught something, built something, prepared the Navy for everything that followed. The next time you hear about American ships in the Persian Gulf, remember they're sailing in waters stained with the history of Operation Earnest Will. Remember the sailors who stood watch in those waters when the rules weren't clear, when the threats were new, when the mission was uncertain. Remember that the doctrine protecting them, the tactics they employ, the confidence they carry all trace back to those forgotten months in 1987 and 1988 when the American Navy learned to fight a new kind of war and emerge stronger for it. Operation Earnest Will may be forgotten by the public, but its legacy sails on every American warship that passes through the Strait of Hormuz, carrying forward the lessons that shaped modern naval warfare.